Hi, I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. We're here with Sandy for Fridays with Sandy and Robert in Boston. Great candidate. He has a great story. Let me just give you the rough outlines. He was a recruited athlete in football to Iowa State. He sort of saw the light in the sophomore year. I think he didn't want to have head injuries or something like that, and decided to buckle down on academics and majored in finance. Came out with a 3.6 GPA. He has a 730 GMAT. He managed to get a job in investment banking at a very well-known firm, silver, not gold. And then he leveraged that after 2 years into a PE firm, middle market PE firm, where he's currently working. And that firm is founded by HBS and Stanford grads, which is a good thing. So his targets, Harvard, Stanford, Columbia, Kellogg. I'm missing one.
Haas.
Robert, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Robert. Like John said, I'm currently a private equity associate with a private equity firm in Boston. Before that, I was an investment banking analyst with William Blair. Spent a year in their London offices, then a year and a half in their Chicago headquarters.
Yeah. Okay. So here's, as we discussed in the pre-interview powwow, here's your story. You're a white guy. You're in an ultra-competitive cohort of smart white guys interested in finance. You know, so you're competing with people from Ivy undergraduate schools, who then went to top-tier banks and PE firms. So they're gold. Okay. Your problem is why should they take you? What's your answer?
I think that my post-MBA goals are very clear and they align pretty well with my story. And it'd be difficult.
They don't care about that. Why should they take you based on the past? Anybody can have great goals. That doesn't cut a lot of mustard. I've said it every week on this program. Don't you agree, John?
Yeah, I really think his strong point is his story.
Yeah. Okay. So why should they take you, Robert?
Yeah, I think my story, it proves grit and ability to continuously use the resources around me to improve. My parents didn't come from a very professional background. I used my base athletic ability to get to school, and in school, I realized the opportunities around me, and I turned that focus that I had to athletics to academics. I helped start a startup as an undergraduate, where I traveled across the country each weekend, administering financial modeling.
Okay, so you helped to start. Tell us about the startup.
So the startup, it's similar to Train the Street. Basically, we go to undergraduate universities. We're invited on campus by their finance clubs, and we teach them how to
teach undergraduates modeling. That's what the startup does.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. That's the way to answer the question.
Okay.
If it comes up in an interview, and it will.
How many people did you teach?
I mean, so we grew this thing. It was 35 people maybe the first semester, and now we teach couple hundred, probably 1,000 actually each semester. We're at 35 schools each semester, and each class is filled with around 40 students.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Okay. I'm keep cutting back to the chase here. Okay. So, John, we've got a white male. He's in the most competitive bucket. Why should they take him over a lot of guys with better stats and better schooling and better work history? He was a football player at a football power, number one. Number two, he helped start this modeling startup. Is there anything else, Robert? Football player, helped with the startup. Is there anything else, any other reason they should take you besides your good looks and well-spokenness?
There's international experience. I spent a year in our London office with William Blair.
That's
yeah. Good. Hey, John, how much weight is that gonna?
Well, I think some schools like the idea of someone having some international exposure. I think, look, how many people out of Iowa State go into investment banking?
I was the second. Sorry.
Okay, the second, right? Ever?
Okay, here's a question. Your current employer, you said that they're a middle market private equity firm. The principals all have Harvard, Yale, Harvard, Wharton, Stanford MBAs, right?
Yes.
Can they do anything for you?
I mean,
Besides write a good recommendation. I mean, can they take another step and make some phone calls or lobby or whatever? Because it's important to them too. The firm is new, right? The current employer is recent, right?
Correct.
And you're the first associate applying to the MBA scene, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So your acceptance actually almost reflects on them as a prestige.
Well, that's what you got to convince them of. But that's a real question for you to answer. What can I have these guys help me beyond just a resume?
Sandy, you raised an interesting point, because I think for an applicant, it's a very awkward thing to ask something like that beyond a recommendation letter. How do you pose the question? How do you start the conversation?
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Robert, do they know you're applying to business school, or is this a...
They do, and they support it fully, actually.
Okay, well, they support it. We're going to make them support it fully. That's right. That's a difficult conversation. You've got, welcome to business school. This is almost a case study with you as the principal. All right. What you got to do is, there's no roadmap for this. You've got to figure out which guy is do you have a real good friend? You don't have to answer these questions, but do you have a real good friend there? Do you have they're supporting you, but do you have a special friend? And then you've got to lobby the friend. He may not be the one to make the call, but he might convince the most senior guy, or the guy who's most likely to make the call. And you've got to, do a little homework on, your principals kind of have to network with their peers in the private equity business about how often it is the case that people make calls to Harvard and Stanford. What do you think the answer to that is, John?
Wow. I have no idea. I wonder how hard it is to get someone in admissions to pick up the phone.
From an alumnus, that's not hard.
Yeah. I mean, one of the ways to do it is, these alums may have had a relationship with a professor at the school, and that's another way in, right?
Well, yeah, it helps if the alums have a relationship with the school, either as, whatever that term is, big feet, or big donors. Okay, let's assume that's the easy case. Okay, let's assume that's not the case, right? Then you would have to figure out what's it to my partners to have a better relationship with the schools. And I think they could recruit higher quality people coming out of the schools. That's what's in it for them. If they became a presence at the school, they could then they'd be invited to events at the school. This is the highest tier of networking for private equity firms. I assume your current firm is interested in growing, and they're interested in getting a hold of, top talent. So that's the current you have to swim in, if you know what I mean.
So are you saying that his basic story isn't strong enough to compete with Ivy League grads at Goldman Sachs and the rest of the places?
With white males, that's what we're talking about here. Let's keep the eye on the ball here. We're talking about white males from finance backgrounds applying, let's just make it simple, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, in the first instance, okay? That is a very impressive and powerful cohort. And the question is, how does Robert overcome that? By not coming from a frequent feeder firm, coming from a newer firm, and how does he overcome it with what might be slightly even lower stats? So the answer is you got to play up the athletics. I mean, I'm impressed. And then you really have to get a rabbi, or you got to get a mentor who can, let's make it easy, okay? If the guy didn't play football and he weren't working for a potentially new and interesting firm, what are his chances, John? Zilch.
At Harvard, Stanford, Wharton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to play up what you bring to the party, and there's no handbook for this. But I'm going to give you real tough love. People accuse me of being tough, but this is the real tough love. What you've got to do is really kind of network your way in. In the first instance, managing up. That's the phrase. We all know what that means now, right? Mm. You've got to manage up in your own firm. And the business schools would go, yeah, that is something we recognize. That's something we teach. That's something we believe in, okay? So in some way, you're having another admissions test here. Can you manage your way up in your firm and then manage your way up into the school? So it becomes, a funny kind of justice, if you know what I'm saying.
There's a lot of subtlety in that, though, isn't there? I mean,
you don't incredibly subtle. It's anything with human relations. You might have a meeting with a partner to discuss this. Man, that meeting is, you say one thing wrong and the thing goes kaput. You get off on the wrong foot. You make the wrong presumption. It's life. That's what happens in deals.
So that's what you think he needs to do for Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton. Does he need to do that for Haas, Columbia, and Kellogg?
I think he's got a real good chance of getting into those places by himself. It's kind of, those are your natural outcomes.
Haas, Columbia, and Kellogg. Yeah.
Well, what do you think, John? You're the one.
Yeah, I also think you might want to throw in Chicago Booth because of your interest in finance.
That's true.
I think
what job? Hey, Robert, what job do you want after business?
Growth equity, consumer-focused investing. So,
would you want to go back to your current employer?
I really like what we're doing. It's just that we're working in the middle market, and if you're investing in consumer brands, it's more exciting with earlier stage companies.
So after business school, you would want to not pass investment banking again. You'd want to go right into private equity. And you're a guy who can do it because you have private equity experience, right?
Exactly.
Which incidentally that adds more value. Just does.
To an employer, yeah, but if he's interested in going to a top-tier private equity firm, how low on the business school totem pole can he go, John?
Well, you got to remember that there aren't a whole lot of MBA graduates who are able to get jobs in PE because they need experience in PE to get that job. And those jobs are lucrative and they pay well and they reflect well on the school. So, there's that. I mean, Stanford, of all these schools, accepts the most people with PE experience and puts out the most people in PE firms.
Yeah, let me mention something else, Robert. How important is it, do you think, for you to go to business school?
I've been going back and forth just because I'm currently in private equity. But I think in the broad picture of my career and my development, I think it's actually a really good choice.
Well, I won't. Since this is a public forum, I won't squeeze you on that. John, how important is it for him to go to business school instead of staying where he is and managing up?
So look,
You can manage up, and you can also manage up and out, i.e., the next person you visit is not a business school admissions officer, but a recruiter.
this is a dilemma for a lot of people who are in very good jobs that pay very well. And the question is, how much more will an MBA do for me over the course of my career? This is a really common dilemma for a lot of young.
It's also going to cost you a ton of money, like maybe $600,000 more.
We'll give them the foregone.
Lost income, 2 years of lost income, and 2 years of tuition.
Yeah,
that's a kick in the head, man.
Yeah, but let's say I think Robert would benefit from a really good, high quality MBA, and if he goes.
Answer this, okay? Let me make a provocative statement, John.
Okay.
To your answer. The only schools worth this guy's while are Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton. I wouldn't go to any school below those.
Well, that is a strategy, but a lot of people who are in good, well-paying jobs with some opportunity to go up would take, for sure. It's Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, or bust. A lot of people would say that.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, but okay, look.
Look, I'm not, man, Robert, I'm not living your life. You have a lot of other things going on. You may be burned out. You may want to go to business school for a million different reasons. You may want to meet some new people. I don't know what your story is. It's a good place to meet a spouse. It's a good place to make contacts. So there are a lot of reasons to go to business school, but
and make a lot of contacts.
Yeah,
that could be very beneficial to him. Here's the other thing. Okay, to the extent that he's got a lot of silver here with Iowa State and William Blair, putting some gold on that resume.
Yeah, but that's my point. The only place worth going to is Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton. You don't need no more silver.
Well, Columbia is not necessarily silver. Neither is Kellogg, right?
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, they're in the M7. The M7 would be gold, and you'd have a great time.
Okay, here's the question: how many people from Kellogg are graduating? I realize it's a misleading question, but how many people from Kellogg are getting jobs at PE firms?
Very few.
Now I realize he already works at a PE firm, so that would change it. But I think if this guy went to Kellogg, he'd have maybe I'm wrong. There ain't a lot of PE firms in the Midwest, are there? So
in Chicago, there are.
Yeah, you'd have to hustle.
Well, look, here's what Kellogg would love him. I'm going to tell you right now because they get too few people with PE experience. They know they're going to be able to place them in a PE job of some kind. Their finance placements are much lower than they used to be, and Kellogg is really trying to fix that. Kellogg would eat him up, might even give him a little money. I don't know, but I think he'd have a really good shot at Kellogg, and I think it would help him. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I would. That would be a tough call. Just being no diss on Kellogg. Just being vicious, utilitarian here. Just being no nonsense here. It's going to cost him $500,000 to go there or more.
So what are his odds? Sandy, Harvard and Stanford, what do you say?
I don't think you're getting in. There's just too many people like you with better stuff. Sorry. I don't think you'd. What's the case for Stanford, John? I mean, what's his case?
Stanford's going to be tough, but Stanford loves PE people, and they love to put them in PE firms, and they may.
They love PE people.
It's
This is what I say most often. There's guys like you that they're gonna like more.
Yeah,
it's a withering comment, but it's true, and that it gets right to the nature of the admissions process.
I also think for Stanford, the fact that he founded a company while he was an undergraduate, the fact that it's touching so many people, the fact that it took a good amount of time, allowed them to travel.
If I were asking advice, believe me, I'd ask you rather than me. You're so supportive and wonderful. What you are not, however, is predictive. So, but who cares about that?
Okay, odds at Wharton. You think the odds at Wharton also are tough?
Got a good chance at Wharton simply because they're looking for well-rounded people. His chances at Wharton are like 35%.
Well, that's good. Okay.
Yeah, if you could get to that cockamamie interview there.
Well, we know he Robert's very personable. He's articulate.
Yeah, no, he's a regular guy. That's
he's a real regular guy, and he's very, very well rounded with the startup.
Well spoken, good looking. He plays football. He's smart.
He's got the package.
Let me tell you, that he's the kind of guy who does become a CEO. I mean, this is a real CEO.
Actually, you're right.
Yeah, if you do the bios of a lot of CEOs, they're not the smartest guys in the room. No, I don't mean they're not smart.
Okay, and then Columbia, Kellogg, and Haas. Obviously, you would think the odds are better than Wharton there, right?
You should get into Kellogg, and the trick there is to convince them why you want to go. Haas, similarly, you should get in, go visit, show them the love. Columbia, I think Columbia, your chances are good too. They're, on the high side, 40, 50%, get interviewed, don't blow the interview. Yeah. There's a real falling off. The odds go up once you get outside of Harvard, Stanford, Wharton. Your dream school should be Wharton, which would be great for you. Throw one into Harvard. It's an easy application.
And if you want to go through that difficult thing where you need to get some of your principals involved.
That you should do, man. That's a worthwhile life exercise.
So it's worth a shot, and if it works, it's great, and it could get you into Harvard. Worth it.
Okay, here, John. I mean, I'm willing to keep talking here, but I realize we've been on for a while. Robert, your Harvard essay. What else do you want us to know about you? What comes to mind?
I would emphasize my story. I would kind of start with the beginnings and really kind of milk that story so I can try to get out of that white PE bucket.
Yeah, totally. You need to do that.
How would you phrase that?
I'd like the admissions committee to keep in mind that when they're reviewing an essay, it'd be easy to bucket me as a finance guy. But if you delve a little bit deeper, you can see that on the surface, I'm a finance guy, but I come from a much different place than most of my peers, and then go into detail.
Yeah, John, tell them how to say that.
Okay,
sorry. To say that. I mean, I don't know. Should the first line be, I wasn't born with a silver spoon neatly placed in my between my molars, or should it be?
No, let me
say something. Drives,
this is not. Let's not overdo it. This is really not an overcoming adversity story. It's a good story. It's a solid story. We're not talking about.
In his own family, he didn't have college-educated role models. Yeah. He was a football player. Went to Iowa State. Made some big transitions here that were successful. I had to work really hard for them. I'm sure none of that came easy.
I'd focus on the transitions and the learning and the. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like you to know I'd like you to know about the influences. Influences is the way to do this. It's the easiest way to get into deep water. What do you think some of the major influences? If you're still game for this interrogation, what do you think some of your major influences have been?
I think
people and events.
Yeah, so I think the founder who I teamed up with to found Adventus, just being put in that environment was a huge influence.
Yeah, go back earlier. They know that. Go back earlier. What are some influences? My parent. Okay, so you've got to do this thing about how your parents influenced you, and that becomes a matter of values, aspiration, focus, trial and error, whatever the truth is. And so the parents could be one influence, and then an influence they like for athletes is a coach. Is there a coach that was really an important influence on you?
It'd probably be more the parents, I think.
I think really hard about that. You got two parents. You might you might turn one of them into a coach for purposes of this process.
Well, is the opening line, my parents always wanted more for me than they were able to achieve themselves?
Yeah, that's all right. There's no need to be sappy about it. You go, I'm serious, because then you're into like cliches and you're trying to squeeze things into predetermined statements. What you want to do is say, my parents were a tremendous influence on me in several ways. My father didn't have a blah blah career, and he did this, and my mother did that, and several important things my father said to me or did with me are this and this and this, and in my mother's case it's this and this and this. The proof is in the pudding anyway, so just get to the pudding as fast as possible.
Very good advice. Hey, Robert, good luck to you, okay? And you're going to get in. You're going to get into a few of these schools. We hope you achieve your wish to get into one of the best ones. But wherever you're going to enjoy the experience. It's going to be helpful to you, I think. And Sandy's right. I mean, the top three, it would add a lot to your resume and a lot to the way you think and your career overall. So good luck to you. And Sandy, thank you again. I love your pudding quote. All right. Hey, thanks everyone for watching us. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants and Sandy Kreisberg in Boston.
Adios.